This is CB Up for Discussion, a podcast series from Community Business where we tackle DE&I and wellbeing hot topics with special guests from across Asia.
Hello, I'm Saranta Gaddy, Senior Program Manager at Community Business, and I'll be your podcast host for this episode. Today, we are so delighted to be up for discussion with Cattreeya Thithiwongsawet. Kat is the Asia Regional Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Leader for Seagate Technology, based out of Thailand. Seagate is a leading innovator of the mass capacity data storage solutions industry with a breakthrough technology to ensure that customers can safely store their data and easily unlock its value. Seagate is a global technology leader for more than 40 years and has 35,000 skillful employees globally and 7 manufacturing sites equipped with nano-precision technology and smart manufacturing capabilities. Kat, as Asia Regional Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Leader, has 15 years of experience in the HR learning and development functions, leading innovative global learning programs that support the business's strategic objectives and working in close partnership with internal executives and customers to define the global requirements and create robust implementation strategies in order to contribute instructional design and facilitation expertise effectively. In 2002, Kat took on the role of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Leader for the Asia region to advance DE&I priorities across the workforce in Asia, including Thailand, China, Singapore, India, and Malaysia. Their role serves as a vital bridge between corporate-level DE&I strategies to localized implementation to fit the unique context of each Asian market. They are passionate about creating spaces where everyone feels valued, heard, and empowered. Kat, thank you for joining us on Up for Discussion.
Thank you so much, Saranda, and thanks for having me. It's such a great opportunity and great honor for me to be here. So thank you so much for the opportunity and reaching out to Seagate.
Thank you. Now let's get started. To start us off, can you share with us a little bit about your journey to becoming a DEI leader and why doing what you do is important to you, Kat?
Yeah, of course. Actually, I've been with Seagate for about 12 years, and I observed various cultural transformations. And one significant milestone is the establishment of the regional DE&I roles in each region. So personally, I'm passionate about company culture and employee experiences, especially in terms of diversity and inclusion. So when this opportunity arose to take the Asia Regional DE&I role, my mind said yes right away without any hesitation at all. So I embraced it wholeheartedly. And in Seagate, we have a culture where we encourage employees to own their career. Like you can design your career journey. So this is where I shift from the L&D path into the D&I. But even though I was in the learning and development for about 15 years, and then I changed to the D&I role for the first time, I didn't feel that much change because I can always leverage my L&D skill set and just be more focused on the D&I aspects. And just to elaborate more in terms of the role that I am responsible for, other than being in Asia Regional Lead, that covering 5 countries that you mentioned, I also play another role of a global LGBTQ plus subject matter expert for Seagate. So that means I will be partnering and collaborating closely with our Pride ERG leaders across Seagate in 3 regions. So this is another key role that I'm playing in order to enhance the LGBTQ plus inclusive benefits and initiatives for the communities. And yeah, this is about my journey. And talking about why doing what I do is so important, or my inspiration would be over the past 2 years, because I started this D&I journey in 2022, right? I realized that I enjoy every single moment of them, and it's such a great learning journey for me. And I feel like this is not just a job for me, it's a learning journey that aligns perfectly with my personal values. Because I keep telling my family, my friends, hey, I'm not working, I'm just doing what I love. Because the other thing, the most important thing, I'm an LGBTQ plus individual. And I'm so proud of my gender identity. So working in the D&I feels like a powerful act of self-affirmation for me. And also I have another personal experiences, being a caregiver for my mother who faced disability challenges for over 17 years. So I could say that I deeply connect with people with disabilities community. And as a woman, based on my birth gender, so as you see, I bridge all three vital communities, and that's why I call it a fulfilling job for me.
Thank you, Kat, for sharing your career journey, but also your personal story. And I think for this conversation, and also for it being Pride Month this month in June, I would like to focus a little bit on the LGBTQ plus area of things, and hear from you. What were some pivotal moments or experiences that really shaped your approach to LGBT inclusion?
I would say based on my personal story, experiences, or the challenges that I'm facing as an LGBTQ plus individual in the workplace. I mean, collecting from my company experiences and my culture, my colleagues, right? I think I experienced very diverse perspective from different groups, different cultures, right? And I got a chance to work with all of the Thai culture, Europe culture, and then in Seagate, I call American culture. So it's all totally different. And I learned many reaction, many perspective towards the attitudes about the LGBTQ plus community. And in some of the workplaces, I may be the only one LGBTQ plus individual in that workplace. So I feel a little bit isolated, and I don't know how much I could reveal my personal story, or I was like afraid of sharing my own personal story during break times. What conversation, what topics should I bring to the table? I think I was thinking too much to interact with other people because I was afraid that if they will not accept who I am, and then how can I maintain that relationship, right? So the more that I grow and the more that I experience different culture, different perspective, until I moved to Seagate, even on my first day, I didn't feel that uncomfortable feeling or hesitant anymore. Because on my first day, when I started my day, I met a lot of LGBTQ plus individuals here in Seagate, and they treated me just like other people did. I mean, I don't feel any special or anything uncomfortable. So I can be myself since day one. I can share my personal stories. I wasn't afraid to share my personal partner, right? The families, those kind of things. So I think those kind of pivotal moments and experience shaping me when I approach the LGBTQ plus solutions in the workplace. I recall those those memory experiences, and I would like to ensure how can I build a more inclusive culture for our LGBTQ plus community here in Seagate. Yeah, so I think this is how I use the past experience to shape the future of the LGBTQ plus inclusion.
And which is such a testament, I would say, right, to Seagate's culture of inclusion and for making this a priority within the organization as well. What would I'd love to hear, what are some of your proudest accomplishments in advancing LGBT inclusion, whether that's within Seagate or in your own personal life as well?
Yeah, of course, it's a mix of my personal and professional stories because, as I mentioned earlier, am very passionate about this role. Actually, there are so many, but if you ask me about the proudest accomplishment, I would say um, establishing the first Seagate Pride Employee Resources Group in Thailand. Seagate Pride is the LGBTQ plus community, and this is the first chapter in Asia. We never had such a Pride ERG chapter in Asia before. We only have in the US or in EMEA region until I joined this role. And actually, personally, my personal story back 5 years ago, I was approached by my US colleague, and they asked me, "Hey, do you want to start a chapter there?" And you know what? I was the only one walking around talking to people. I gathered all of the LGBTQ plus at that time. And you have to imagine 5 years ago, the culture may be slightly different from today, right? Even though there's no, how to say, there's nothing against the LGBTQ plus community, but it's more like a don't ask, don't tell approach. Like they're being neutral, right? Neutral. So they're not really keen to have a pride chapter back then. So I was okay, because the ERG has to start with at least 2 people, but I was the only one there. So I keep that to myself until I joined the DE&I role, and then I changed a little bit of the strategies. And in Thailand, Seagate has 2 locations. One is in Theprak, which is closer to Bangkok, our capital city. And the other one is in Korat. Korat is the northeastern part of Thailand, where I'm based. Even within the same country, the culture is slightly different. So in Theprak is more open because it's closer to Bangkok, and they can observe so many initiatives around the LGBTQ plus community. So my strategies, I reached out to the younger generation in Theprak site, and for the first time they say yes, hey, I really want to have a Pride ERG. They were very excited. So we start the first chapter in Asia, and it's the Theprak site first, because in Korat the culture is slightly different, right? So back then there was around 500 over employees joined the membership of the first Pride chapter, which is a huge success, right? And building on that success in Theprak, this year, 2 years later, we expanded to Korat chapter. And they are very excited, and they are planning the official launch in the next few weeks, actually. Yeah, they are planning in the middle of June. So yeah, I think this is the key achievement, right? And it's also, I'm so proud because I was in the middle of the story until become successful. Yeah.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And you touched on even some of the complexities within the same organization and different offices. And in your role as, looking over the region, as we know, Asia is such a nuanced region with complexities in each market. How do you navigate these complexities of promoting LGBTQ inclusion in this region with such diverse cultural, religious, and legal contexts?
Yeah, of course. I think this is the great example, right? The one that I just mentioned. So even when I first joined the DE&I role, I was like have this kind of feeling that, hey, I was born here in Thailand. I'm an Asian person. I know best about Asia culture. But the more that I explore about even in Thailand, within the same country, there was a different culture between different locations. And the more that I explore in other 4 countries that I'm covering, I was like, oh, I was totally wrong. They all have like very diverse cultural, religious, legal, as well as the attitudes. The important thing, I would say, the attitudes toward LGBTQ plus community in specific countries require a customized approach, even within the same country, as I mentioned, right? So I think for myself, I think I see myself as a bridge that merge between the corporate DEI strategies with local Asian culture. So it's like a two-way street communications, top-down approach, right? You have the DNI strategy at the corporate level, but bottom-up approach also important. I have to listen to our employees and advocating for their needs, right? Ensure that the DE&I initiatives resonate authentically within the local context. So it's like a two-way communications that I play the role. And in terms of LGBTQ plus progressive among 5 countries, even Asian countries, I would say that Thailand is the most progressive market at the moment. I'm talking about Seagate markets only. And I use push and pull approach here. Like for example, when I first established the Pride in Teprak, this is the push approach, right? I know we have Teprak closer to Bangkok. They are more open culture, so we kind of formed there in Teprak. And then we use the pull approach in Korat. So let them observe from Teprak. What are something that they can learn from Teprak, and then they leverage from there, right? Once they are ready, then we support them to expand the chapter in Korat. And I think with this model is actually very good because Teprak can play a role of mentor to the Korat chapter because they have been there before, right? 2 years ago, they know how they struggle when they first started a chapter, how they gather all of the committee members, how to get buy-in with the leadership team. So they kind of like play a mentor role for the Korat chapter as well. So I think this is how I navigate the complexity of each of the diverse cultural here.
Thank you. And I love that push and pull approach and model. I think it's something that in your role requires so much sensitization and listening, to what's on the ground and to how an initiative or program is going to be received.
I would like to add one more approach. I think I mentioned about the two ways communication. I think there's another terms that the DE&I they would call globalization, right? Like global, and then you have to localize it. I think it's the globalization that really work for me as well.
Yes, that is key. And I think, yeah, I guess in terms of, as a leader, you have your strategy, and I'd love to hear, how Seagate as an organization, and whether it's from the corporate on a regional level, what are initiatives and programs that have been initiated to really create more inclusive work environments for LGBTQ plus individuals.
Yeah. Actually, this one I also very passionate because I play another role of the global LGBTQ plus subject matter expert for Seagate, right? So this initiative in Seagate, we just launched the Seagate Gender Transition Toolkit, and this is a global toolkit, and I was the program lead. So I work with the various stakeholders like Pride ERG leaders across Seagate, across 3 regions. I work with HR team, different functions like the total rewards team, HR business partner, HR central, right? I work with the legal team because some of the policies are also includes those kind of legal context, right? And then I also got a great support from the external DE&I network and mentors. So I have to say that these are all very helpful resources. So the toolkit will cover all the necessary policies, processes to develop an engagement plan for transitioning employees and best practices for an inclusive conversation and gender pronouns, gender neutral facilities, restroom directory, the dress code. And I think this is very, I feel like very impressive. I also connected with the transgender employees here in Seagate who had actual transitioning experiences in Seagate to share their own story. Of course, I make it anonymous. I won't reveal their names, but this is a real story of our Seagate people, right, that have been included in the gender toolkit as well. So toolkit is a very comprehensive toolkit to ensure that we have a supportive environment for transitioning employees and everyone who identify as transgender identities, as well as allies. So this can be very applicable tools for everyone. And the other one is, I think in Seagate, we also activating pronouns feature in our company platform. So it's including in the chat application or the employee profile, the directory, right? So when you search for people, and then you can just search by their names, and then you're going to see their bio photo, right? The picture and their names, and underneath the name, you're going to see their preferred pronouns. So I think it's very convenient and make it easier for colleagues to refer to one another respectfully. And of course, this is a global workforce, right? When you work with someone you haven't contacted before in different countries, let's say my name, Cattreeya Thithiwongsawet. If someone from the US, they may not know what pronouns that I should use, right? So activating pronoun, I think this is not only for the LGBTQ plus individuals, but it's the collective effort in a global workforce, right? So that everyone can respect each other pronouns. So we kind of bridge the cultural gaps and fostering understanding across languages, traditions, and backgrounds. And then followed by that feature, of course, we need to provide educational resources, right? So that people have a better understanding of why it's so important, why gender pronouns matters in Seagate, right? So we provide a training, the on-demand training that is accessible to all employees, so that they can deepen their understanding and foster an inclusive workplace. And not only pronouns, we also provide the LGBTQ plus 101 training, so that they can understand each of terminology, the definitions. I have to say, being a global LGBTQ plus SME for Seagate, I see different maturity level between different regions. In the US, you may not need to understand the terminology of LGBTQ plus, right? They are way advanced for us. But in Asia, even gender pronouns, this is very new to some people in Asia, right? Don't even talk about pronouns yet. You have to start with the definition of LGBTQ plus first, right? Terminology, make sure that they truly understand, then you follow by the pronouns. So I think the maturity level here help us to navigate and customize the approach to each of the local contexts in different countries or different regions as well.
And I think everything you've described really shows how your role and how DE&I can and must, in a way, sort of work across the organization and really with different areas of the organization to make an impact.
Yes, exactly.
And there's a lot, and I think with, as you mentioned, we kind of touched on cultural nuances, different market contexts, and I think there's a lot around LGBTQ plus initiatives that are also driven by the market regulation or legislations. Do you think, in your opinion, and also if there are any examples from Seagate, do you think companies can drive governments to make legislative changes?
Yeah, I think that is a very big question, right? Of course, not directly control the government decisions, but I still believe in our collaboration with other stakeholders can lead to a positive changes for both businesses and the society holistically. I can give you a good example, like in Seagate, of course, in Thailand, first, the Thailand context, we still not recognize the same gender marriage. I mean, in terms of the local legislation, right? But in Seagate, we enhance the inclusive benefits in Thailand by revising the marriage leave policy to offer the same gender couple to apply for paid marriage leave. So this is a great example that, yeah, we can serve as a baseline for the local legislation as well. And I hope that this initiative could influence the local legislative, to move forward with a more LGBTQ plus inclusive benefits in the community, right? Yeah. And I have to give the credit back to my external DE&I network, because I got this initiative and leverage from that network that I joined and participated from time to time. So most of the time we exchange, right? Our best practices here and there. What are the best practices in Seagate? What I could leverage from others. So I brought this back to the Seagate company and see if how the leadership team can leverage from this kind of best practices sharing or exchanging, right? So this is how we improved our inclusive benefits.
Yeah, and I think it's so important for that to have that community, right? To really learn from each other, to network and to grow as individual organizations, but also as a collective.
And one more thing, I think the community is also important because when I first joined the D&I role, I need to expand my new D&I community, right? So when normally in the US, they always have huge, very good networking and communities. But most of the time you would see how can we apply this into a Asia regional context? Until I found, oh, we do have DE&I in Asia. So we speak in the same languages, Oh, okay, we have the same struggle, we have the same culture barriers, those kind of things. And even the subgroup, we have the D&I in technology industry. So this is also important that the more that you can be specific in the D&I community, the more that you can get the best practices that you can apply to your industry or to your organizations.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing, Kat. I'd like us to take a little bit of a future look now as we kind of see, what's on the horizon for D&I in Asia. And, I think in recent years and now as well, I think D&I is at a pivotal moment. There's been quite a bit of backlash in the US, and there's just a lot of different changes happening in the Asia region as well. What advice would you give to any emerging DE&I leaders who are passionate about advocating for LGBTQ rights in Asia? And how can they really navigate all these challenges and leverage opportunities to really make a meaningful impact in their organizations and in the communities that they serve?
I think this is the great question that I will ask all the time. So now I just realized that I have my own principle. The more that I respond to this question, I kind of okay, I put a theme into it. So it's easier for me and the audience to understand and absorb. So for me personally, I use these three approaches, inviting, listening, and advocating. So I will go through each of the details. Inviting, for me, make it truly inclusive by inviting the LGBTQ plus employees. I'm not talking about other majority employees. I'm talking about specific LGBTQ plus employees to actively participate in the D&I journey, especially in the LGBTQ plus aspect, right? I put the analogy here. Let's imagine you are renovating a more inclusive house for them to live in. Of course, this is a big house. You have so many areas and you wanted to improve one area to make it more inclusive for LGBTQ plus to live. So you need to ask them, right? You need to collect their input, right? It's just like that concept. If you wanted to improve something, design the initiative, you need to make sure that it serves their needs, right? So what works well, that we can maintain or sustain? What are the areas to improve to be a more inclusive culture? And more importantly, what are the pain points, right? Or struggling moments that we could address? So listen from them. So a great example when I mentioned about building the gender transition toolkit at that time. Of course, I can't just write it from my own perspective, from HR perspective, right? I reached out to all the Pride ERT leaders, especially the transgender employees in Seagate. And that were super helpful resources for the toolkit. And once I not only reached out, I had a focus group conversation with each of them who volunteered to share their personal experiences, right? This is my approach. And then once I finished the first draft, I let them review it again, incorporate their inputs and suggestions before officially launch to ensure that it's comprehensive enough and is relevant resources for them. So this is, I'm talking about inviting and involve as well, not just invite, but not involve, invite and involved. And then the second step, listening to everyone's voices, right? They need to be heard, not only the majority, but the community as well. And be specific again, even within the same LGBTQ plus community. And you have to remember there are so many subset groups in there, right? So you need to have a unique needs experiences, listen to their unique needs and experiences, right? So obvious example would be, let's say transgender individuals. They may experience specific challenges related to gender restroom facilities, but not other subgroups in LGBTQ plus individual. So this kind of example, you need to continue to listen from different groups and tailor the initiatives, right? So that you can create a more inclusive and impactful organizational culture for everyone. And then finally, ended with advocating. I think as a leader, you already have that positional power, right? So use it meaningfully. And I believe in the individual strengths, so we all have our own power, right? We just need the opportunity to show it. So if you are in the position where you could offer those opportunities, please do so, right? Especially when you are the executive or people manager, you play an important role, right? You can help normalizing the leadership and visibility of the LGBTQ plus communities. You can even help to highlighting their achievements in the senior leadership forum, or even offering the mentorship, coaching, sponsorship for LGBTQ plus employees, or even growing their network across the organization, right? Providing the stage for them to shine. So in Seagate, when employees form their group, like the Pride ERG, they need to invite someone at the executive level to be their sponsor, so that the sponsor can provide guidance and support to their ERG. And at the same time, the sponsor will represent Seagate commitment to supporting ERGs and their efforts at the leadership level. So this is about advocating. And I think in summary of these three approaches, I look at it as a full loop power. So that means you can't just not use only one or two, but you have to use it all together. Imagine if you just only invite but not listen. So there is no true inclusivity, right? And once you listen, then share insight across the organization, advocate, right? Because the story that you have heard from the small group cannot only limit within that group. You have to spread to the entire organization, shaping the entire company culture. Yeah, so this is the principle that I'm using for three approaches.
That's great. So invite, listening, and advocating.
Yeah, exactly.
And you've painted it so clearly, and thank you for sharing, examples within each that DE&I professionals and leaders can really utilize and bring forward into their organizations. And so looking ahead, Kat, what are your aspirations for the future of LGBTQ inclusion in Asian markets? And what do you hope to achieve in the coming years, through Seagate or in your personal life as well?
I think, of course, Thailand is still my priority. Actually, I forgot to mention that Korat location is actually one of the largest sites in Seagate. So our majority of the employee based here in Thailand. So I think there is a lot more things or initiative that we could do, keep on enhancing our LGBTQ plus inclusive policy, benefits, and practices. So I will continue to enhance the inclusive in Thailand. And also, I think my next milestone that I hope for personally is Singapore market, because of considering the recent legal change, right, which is a significant milestone. So I will continue to find the opportunity to expand Seagate Pride ERG chapter in Singapore, so that we could provide a platform for employees to connect, advocate, and drive change within the organization. The other aspiration for me, the more that I work in the DE&I aspect in Asia markets, I think we still need to have cultural acceptance and visibility of LGBTQ plus identities. And this also involve challenging stereotypes and promote understanding, right? And even sometimes we need to encourage open discussions about LGBTQ plus experiences, because in some culture or in some country, this LGBTQ plus is still very sensitive topic. They're not even open to share or to talk about it in the workplace yet. So I think we need to shape the culture, right? And share more accurate information to correct those misconceptions, right? And then we need to continue to embrace the nuances of the identity and encourage individuals to be authentic and celebrate their unique self.
Yes, and yeah, I think like you shared earlier, really sharing those stories and those personal stories for others to hear. And I look forward to seeing you in I look forward to seeing you in Singapore, Kat.
Yeah, sure, of course.
And so finally, a question that we like to ask all our guests. What do you think is the biggest way we can make a ripple of change throughout society?
What a coincidence. Actually, I use this ripple effect terminology very often, especially when I was facilitating the leadership training. I always ended the session with this concept because it's about changing the behaviors, right? So personally, I truly believe in the role model concept and the ripple effect. And if you want something to change, then be the change so that it can create a ripple effect by inspiring others to take action. Because I think when they see someone succeed, right, it fuels other as self-confidence and resilience. And the other thing other than ripple effect, I would say we need to foster an environment of empathy and respect, right? Encourage open dialogue and plant seeds of optimism and uplift others, because a positive atmosphere can inspire change as well. So I want to share some of my personal story. Besides work, I'm also a volunteer listener in a mobile application where I will receive a random anonymous callers who need someone to talk to. And one time the app connected me to a caller who identified as an LGBTQ plus individual. And during our conversation, I sensed the weight of his experiences, the challenges, and the struggling moments that he was facing. And then he confessed that he had called the app multiple times before, only to find himself talking to straight listeners who struggled to grasp the nuances of his world, and leaving him feeling unheard and isolated. But our conversation that they flow like a water. I listened intently, I put empathy into my words, and when the moment felt right, I shared my gender identity. And his reaction was a mix of surprise and relief and gratitude. So he said to me, "Oh, no wonder, you truly understand because you walked a similar path," right? So in that instant, our connection deepened. And for the first time, he felt seen and heard. So that was a ripple effect story for me, right? Because a tiny stone dropped into the ocean of human experiences already through that conversation. So I strongly believe that I had set a chain reaction there, and he would carry this empathy forward, paying it forward to others who seek support for their own struggle. So I think it's about the small everyday acts of compassion without judgment. So even when you can, extend your support to the LGBTQ plus community, whether it can be through a heartfelt conversation, a kind word, or even a simple acknowledgement of their gender identity, right? Be their safe space and watch your ripple spread, right? Touching lives you may never know. So I think in summary, I want to end with this quote: making a ripple of change is keep being the change you wish to see.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Kat, and for being such an inspiration in this space. And I loved our conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me too. As you can see, I think my passionate can send it to you through our virtual environment.
It definitely can. And and there's so much energy, in your passion, which is really, really amazing. So thank you so much for sharing your professional, but also your very personal stories throughout this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity and such a great honor and very fruitful discussion today.
Thank you for listening to CB Up for Discussion. For more information about our work across Asia, head to the Community Business website.